That's a puny little keyboard if ever I've seen one.
Okay. This is the
A
Bakeneko?
knife? That's not a knife. This is a knife.
This is a keyboard, and so is that.
Well, this one's bigger, mate. It's also more expensive, so it's better.
Okay. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but you're kind of making me feel uncomfortable, so can you leave?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go. I gotta also return this hat back to the Australians.
Welcome to the channel, guys. So is the size of the keyboard the main determining factor for its price? Bigger the keyboard, the more expensive it is? Well, to a certain degree this can hold true, but it's not entirely everything. In this video, I hope to provide some of the reasons why one keyboard can cost more than the other and what you get by going up in pricing. Before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is an online service that helps you print PCBs, do 3D printing, or even CNC machining. If you're an aspiring keyboard designer or whatever else designer, you can take your design and simply upload it to get something made quick. Or, if you have the source code for a PCB that you already have and need a replacement, you can also get that done as well. They can handle all types of PCBs from your simple single-layer designs to multi-layer stacks. Beyond PCBs, if you want to try making your own case, PCBWay can machine that. And finally, if you want something just as simple as a plate being machined out of aluminum, palm, or whatever, they can do that as well. So check them out in the description below.
Obviously, there are some extraordinary factors that will determine the cost of the product. For example, the brand or the exclusivity, like for a key cult, or just the sheer rarity, like a TGR. And sometimes the group buys are run on smaller scales that actually drives up the spot manufacturing cost for that specific keyboard that translates to the buyer. And sometimes, depending on the company, they also need to have higher margins to be able to pay their staff, also run marketing that's also baked into the product as well. However, if you actually eliminate some of these extraordinary costs, let's try to determine what makes one keyboard cost more than the other.
For this, we'll be looking at two very similar but very differently priced keyboards, the big boys. First up is the Akko Mod 3, which I have done a review on before. It's a great 1800 form factor board with good features and performance for a price that the enthusiasts will consider it as entry. What I mean entry, I mean this keyboard goes for around $169 as a bare bones kit. Next up on the premium side is the KBDFANS Odin. The Odin is another 1800 form factor board with also a lot of features and serves to provide a typing experience for those that need the numpad and can't live without it. Although the form factor is similar, the Odin is priced much higher at around $319, which can be seen as almost double versus the Akko. If you're interested in any of these boards, please see in the description below on how to pick one up. Let's dive in to see why there's such a price discrepancy and what drives the difference. Since I have covered the Akko Mod 003 in detail before, if you like more info, check it out in the video right here. Now let's go into the Odin, what this is all about and some of the feature sets it actually possesses. The Odin is an 1800 form factor offering from KBDFANS that offers quite a bit of features and also a very clean design language that resonates from KBDFANS' more premium offerings. This version I have is E-White, which I will actually cover in more technical depth and detail later and what that really means. It has a full aluminum construction, it's a gasket mounted structure like most premium keyboards are nowadays, and provides customization that you're looking for. For example, the Odin ships with a brass plate, but a PC plate is also available. In my batch, it actually was part of the kit. It also comes with foam. I know, right? It's 2022 and pretty much every kit comes with loads of it, but as shown before, it's up to you whether you choose to use it or not. But it is there if you do choose to use it. Finally, the PCB is a sleek black finish with the usual KO hot swap sockets and per key RGB, all in south-facing configuration. When you start looking at a 1800 size PCB, man, you realize how massive this thing is, like Crocodile Dundee's knife. In order to preserve the flex and provide the room to move, Odin also features a daughter board that separates the USB port from the main board, and PCB is also VIA and QMK compatible. Now, if you do wish to go for some extra weight or bling, the stock aluminum weight below the Odin can be removed and be replaced with a brass one as well. Once all done and assembled, this is what it looks like. For this build, I went with the Gateron Blizzard tactile switches and also this, the Hippo caps by HipyoTech. Hipyo worked with Polycaps and Kinetic Labs to get his design on the market, and I feel it's such a great look with the white board. So check it out in the description below to support a fellow keyboard enthusiast and creator. He also makes music. I'm just so stoked by how this turned out. The caps on this white Odin is just fire. Such a clean looking board, I can't even. Alright, so between the Akko Mod video and this one, we now know what these keyboards are all about. So let's hop onto the topic at hand. Why is one $169 and the other one $319? What more do you get with the $319 one?
First, I'm going to try to cover some of the objective points. Then I'm going to close it out with some subjective preferences. Then afterwards, let's talk about some of the similarities that actually transcends price. So first up is some enthusiast level feature sets.
So first and foremost is the customization capability of the PCB. As mentioned before, the KBDFANS Odin is fully VIA and QMK capable, which means it can be programmed to do pretty much anything you want. You can change the key maps, build macros, and if wanted, your entire numpad can be converted into an attached macro pad. While there are some limited customizations available with the Mod 3, the proprietary cloud software does not really provide this level of customization, so many would place great value on VIA and QMK compatibility in this hobby. Staying on topic with the PCB is the south or north facing LED orientation. I know that this is an important topic to some and less important to others, and many switch manufacturers have started to make north facing compatible switches with cherry profile caps. However, it's still something many place value in, and I can tell you that as long as you go up in the price points, you'll start finding mostly south-facing as the exclusive layout, while at the lower price points, north-facing is much more prevalent. So in case you're not familiar with the topic, many switches do have interference in north-facing orientation with cherry caps, so there's a chance that your beloved GMK set may not work. South-facing will guarantee that all cap profiles will actually work. Alright, moving on is the physical customization capabilities. Typically, when you go up and higher in price points, the keyboards tend to come with multiple offerings of parts or accessories to really dial in the setting that you're looking for. For example, in this case with the Mod 3 versus the Odin comes with an option for both the brass and PC plates, a hot swap or solderable PCB for different layouts, foam for use or not, aluminum weight or brass weight, and a few others as well. So essentially, with the higher price point, you're also paying for the ability to purchase more stuff to make your keyboard more unique. Funny that you pay more on top of already paying more, but you get what I mean. And finally, the stabilizers. Most higher-end boards come with the ability to take on screw-in stabilizers. For the most part, screw-in stabs are more stable, and there are also more premium offerings out there that really deliver an amazingly smooth and quiet experience. Usually on lower price boards, you typically are stuck with plate mounted stabs, which are not as tightly fitting and can require more to really tune it right. However, there are exceptions to this case as well, since the Novelkeys plate mount stabs are actually pretty nice.
Alright, so next, let's talk about finishing. So when I say finishing, I'm talking about the surface look and feel, as well as the processes that are required to put the color on the keyboard itself. So today, this is where things are going to be a little bit more technical.
So the obvious finishing comparison is the case fit. As you can see here, you can see larger gaps in a lower priced Akko versus the higher priced Odin. So something to point out. Now, color finishes. So when you move from plastic cases to aluminum ones, they typically come colored a certain way or another for you to choose from. For this segment, I'll go over 3 major types and discuss the pros and cons of each and also the cost implications. First, and typically the most basic coloring process is painting. This is something that most people are very familiar with. Painting the case is essentially the same as painting anything else. You first start with the raw case itself, in this case aluminum. Then you clean the surface and prep it so that the paint could adhere properly, typically by using some more abrasive cleaners or etching solution. Then you prime, which helps to create an even sublayer that the paint could bond to. Then you paint, and then you finish it off with a clear coat or some kind of a protective layer. Obviously, the pros of this process is that it's proven and it's widely used. This also means that you don't really need too much specialized equipment and could pretty much pump these out fairly easily and quickly, and very importantly, cheaply. A prime example of this process is actually on the Bakeneko keyboards. There are definitely cons to this process as well. First and foremost is the durability. Essentially, when you paint something, you're covering that item with a shell of paint. Think of it as like an M&M candy with a shell. This means that while the application is quick and easy, it's also equivalently easy to scratch and remove the paint. In addition, as many has expressed with the Bakeneko cases, it's difficult to get a perfectly even smooth spray onto multi-angled, sharply creased items like a keyboard case, so consistency can be a struggle here as well. Next up and step up is a very widely used method for aluminum keyboard cases called anodization. Yes, ano and keyboard cases are pretty ubiquitous. Anodization actually relies on a naturally occurring process called metal oxidation to create a protective and porous layer to dye to a certain color. So in order to understand this, we need to think of a commonly occurring phenomenon. If you take an iron bar and leave it exposed to water and oxygen, it will oxidize. It will oxidize to an orange-brown color. We commonly call this rust. Yes, iron and steel will rust as part of their oxidization process, and aluminum and other certain metals also react with oxygen and oxidize as well. However, instead of turning into an orange rust, it forms aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide isn't an additive layer, but it's actually a conversion when aluminum reacts with oxygen and turns into an aluminum oxide. Imagine this kind of like a scab or scar on your body, as your body also heals and protects. The natural color of aluminum oxide is silver, hence why when you typically see aluminum, it's depicted as a silver color. A fun fact is that Statue of Liberty is actually made of copper. Copper oxidizes green, hence why the Statue of Liberty is actually green now. Now, if aluminum forms an aluminum oxide skin and turns silver, how does my keyboard look blue or black or red? Well, that's the beauty of the oxidation process. As the aluminum oxidizes and forms an aluminum oxide skin, it also turns porous. This means the surface of the aluminum oxide has little holes or crevices that things could get into. So, this is where you could add in color dye into these little crevices and then seal it to change the color of aluminum. The result is a beautiful color that is naturally protected, wears pretty hard, and is also very durable. Overall, the finishing is also pretty even as well. So, anodization seems perfect, so are there any cons? Like everything else, there are some. One example is that not everything can be anodized. This is because certain metals like aluminum and titanium react with oxygen and create a protective aluminum or titanium oxide layer, but not all metals do this. Iron and steel is one example. You don't really want a rusted keyboard, right? In addition, since anodization creates a porous aluminum oxide layer, the surface is not the most perfectly smooth. I mean, it's pretty smooth enough, but it's not ultra glass smooth. Finally, the colors. You can pretty much anodize aluminum to most colors except white. Why not white? Well, there seems to be differing opinions on this, but one side states that white color dye molecules are too big to fit into the small crevices that are formed during oxidation. In my opinion, while this may be true, I feel it's more the issue with the fact that surface of an aluminum oxide layer is silver. So what happens when you try to paint something black with like white paint? Yeah, you pretty much could see the black underneath it pretty easily. I feel like this is what's happening as well. When you try to anodize something white, you feel the little crevices with white, but you actually also see the silver shining through it, so it just kind of looks like light silver. Perhaps this is pretty much what Glorious ran into with their GMMK Pro white ice issue. So then what's next? What can be better than anodization? Well, it's a third process called electrophoresis or electrophoretic deposition. When you see something that says E white or E black or E yellow, it is actually referring to this process. And typically this is a more expensive and generally it's offered on more expensive boards. While anodization relies on oxidation to create pores for color to fill, electrophoretic deposition is actually an additive process. What happens is that the color that you want your keyboard to really become, this dye is suspended in a bath. Then you put actual metal keyboard case into the bath, and then you use the magic of electromagnetism. So you essentially charge the case with either a positive or negative energy, and charge the substrate with the opposite polarity. Then what happens? They bond together like a magnet, right? This is an electrochemical bonding. Since this process doesn't really rely on pores, the surface can be treated to be perfectly smooth. And since this is an additive process where you're covering an entire surface of the aluminum, you will have better wear and corrosion resistance versus anodization as well. It's not just a surface level adhesion like paint, but it's more on the molecular level, so it's also much more durable than painting. The interesting thing is this. From what I gather, setting up an anodization plan costs more money than an electrophoretic deposition plan. However, why is electrophoresis more expensive than anodization? It's actually the yield rate. Anodization is a process that may have more steps or more equipment required, but the results are more guaranteed. On the other hand, electrophoresis has a much lower yield rate, where if there is a even small residue or imperfection, the electrochemical process cannot be done successfully. Because of this, you may end up throwing, let's say, 100 aluminum cases in, and you get 90 complete cases out, while with ano, you might get 99. So whatever has failed needs to be thrown out, and that would actually drive up the cost. I know this is probably much more than you probably wanted to know about how the color on your keyboard is put there. However, I hope really it helps you understand what the processes are and why electrophoretic colors are offered on typically higher end boards.
Finally, I'm going to move more into the subjective criteria, things like design, look, details. These are some of the factors that will also drive up the keyboard's cost. However, some things that look good to me, it actually might be ugly to you, so this is a little bit more opinion-based.
So, since I mentioned design, let's start there. If you take a look and compare the Akko Mod 3 to the Odin, you can immediately notice that Odin has a more complex design. The case of the Akko is simpler with more bulky straight lines and simple angles. On the other hand, you have the Odin with softer silhouettes and rounded edges. Yes, from a machining perspective, the Odin will actually cost more money to mill. But from a design perspective, it just looks nicer to me. The way the case was designed, it looks like the rear of the keyboard is actually floating in the air. Plus, you get these tiny little design cues and points like the Odin triangle logo detail that lights up. For me, this is something that has worth and I would actually pay more money for. Now, the final subjective criteria for me is actually the sound. I don't mean one is thockier and the other one's clackier, so it's worth more. What I want to show is how much effort it actually takes to get the keyboard to sound good. So obviously this is very subjective. But in the case of the Mod versus the Odin, I had to remove the original dampening material, then use some thin kill mat, and then use a force break to really kill the ping out of the Mod 3. Then I did the tape mod and eventually got a very nice sound. You know, it actually sounds really nice. For the Odin, I did nothing. I just threw in what they gave me, and I didn't have to do anything else to kill the ping or anything. So it's actually the level of effort required to get the final result you're looking for. So if you want to be lazy, then you just spend a little bit more money. And since I brought up sound, obviously here's a quick sound test between the two giants. So I want to conclude with the final tidbit about worth and value of spending more or less. As you can see, there are some solid arguments about some of the objective advantages to a more expensive board. Then there are some subjective ones that depends on what you're really looking for. Finally, there are areas like ultimate sound results and also feel between these two boards that I feel are equally on par. Like, check this out. Both the Mod 3 and Odin have a nice flex and they're both comfortable to type on. And the end sound result of the Mod and Odin I feel are equally good. So in this case, you don't really have to spend double to get that, right? What I want to say is, at the end of the day, spending more or less depends on what you're looking for. Do you need the PCB customization? Do you want to use different plates? Is a south-facing socket important to you? If you said yes, then sure, go ahead and buy something that offers these features. It may be worth more money. Or are you looking for a nice sounding and nice typing keyboard that you will work around to mod and tune it to how you like? Then save your money and actually invest your time instead. So I really hope that this makes sense and put things into perspective for you. Before I close, I want to say that I have a Discord server. The community has been growing pretty quickly, and it's a great place to come on, ask questions, and discuss our favorite topic of keyboards. I try to be on there as much as possible to answer questions and just chat, so come join us on the Keyboard Discord. Thank you.